Okay, today we are going to review the Mishnah on Chesam and Aleph on 8a in Makos. The Mishnah, we divided into three parts, is going to talk about throwing something like a rock in a public domain versus throwing it in a private domain. So let's begin. The Mishnah begins as follows. Hazorek even l'rishus harabim v'harag, one who throws an even, a stone, into rishus harabim, into a public domain, v'harag, and causes someone to die, harei zeh gola. That person is sent into exile, into the Ir Miklat, because, as we said, he is shogeg. He is shogeg, and we asked in Shir, which we're not going to discuss the answer, but you should know the question. Our question is, if he's throwing a rock into a public domain, that should sound more like karov lemezid. That's super, super idiotic and irresponsible to throw a rock into a public, crowded area. Why then is it shogeg and not actually karov lemezid? That's the question we asked in Shir, but for right now, the Mishnah tells us that throwing a rock into a public domain and killing is gola, it's shogeg. Let's continue. Rav Elazar ben Yaakov Omer, but Rav Elazar ben Yaakov says, Im sheyatzasa ha'even miyado, if at the time where he threw the rock, meaning he wound up, the rock just left his hand, and at that very second where it left his hand, his yad, hotzi hala es rosho vekabla. This guy who's going to end up getting hit, he sort of sticks out his head, pokes his head out the window, and allows himself to get hit, vekabla. So in that case, Rav Elazar ben Yaakov tells us, harei zeh pater. In that case, he is not shogeg, he's not sent into galus, he is pater. It is not his fault. And we gave the example that imagine it's like a guy who allows himself to get hit by a pitch. A batter who allows himself to get hit by a pitch, he moves into the ball instead of trying to avoid it. In the rules of baseball, he is not awarded a base because you have to do your best to get out of the way. So a guy who allows himself to get hit would not cause someone to be shogeg and to have to go to the Ir Miklat. That is part 1 of the Mishnah. Let's see the next part of the Mishnah. Part 2 of the Mishnah says as follows. Zarak es ha'even lechatzero v'harag. If you threw a rock, this time it's not into rishus harabim, it's chatzero. We said chatzer means a courtyard or a backyard, so chatzero means your courtyard, it's your private property. V'harag, and you killed someone. So what's the case? What's the law? The Mishnah tells us it depends. Im yesh rishus lenizak likanei sham, if the nizak, the victim, the guy who gets hurt, had rishus, had permission, likanei sham, to enter into there, gola, then the rock thrower would be gola, he's shogeg. He should know that if he gives his neighbors permission to take a shortcut into his backyard, then he should know to look out for them. Donnie Rose should not be swinging golf balls into his backyard if Tzvi Markovitz has permission to be hanging out in his backyard at that time. But the Mishnah says, Ve'im lav, and if not, meaning if the guy does not have permission to go into his neighbor's backyard, eino gola, then the rock thrower, is not gola. He is ones. It's not his fault, because someone had no business trespassing into his property. And that's this case. Private property, no trespassing. In a case where a guy has no right to be in your backyard and you kill him by accident, that guy's off the hook. He's not shogeg. He does not have to go to Ir Miklat. And the Mishnah points us to the source in the Torah for this. Shenemar, it says in the Torah, Vasher yavo esra'eu bayar, when a friend of yours, when two guys go into the forest together. And why does it specify a forest, a yar? Ma hayar rishus lenizak vilamazik likanesham, just like a forest. It's permission for both the nizak, the victim, and the mazik, the rock thrower, the guy who causes damage, likanesham, to enter into there, meaning just like a forest is public where anyone can go hiking, af kol rishus lenizak vilamazik likanesham. So too any place where damage occurs in an area where both the damaged and the damager have permission to go there, it's a case of shogeg. Yatsa chatzer bal habayis, and this excludes the backyard of the owner. She'ein rishus lenizak likanesham, because in that case the nizak, the victim, does not have permission. She'ein rishus lenizak likanesham, has no permission to go there. And so therefore, essentially, it's the question, is it private property or is it public property like a forest? If it's public property like a forest, even if that means it's a backyard, but the neighbors all have permission to go there at any time, then the person would be shogeg for throwing a rock into that area. But if it's private property, no trespassing, the neighbors are not allowed to cut through this backyard at any time, then the person, if he kills a neighbor, would not be shogeg. It would be ones. It's not his fault because, well, no one should be there in the first place. He has the right to throw rocks in his backyard if he wants to. And that is part 2 of the Mishnah. Let's see the last part. Abba Shaul Omer. Abba Shaul says, Ma chatavas eitzim rishus, just like chopping wood. Chatavas means chopping. Just like chopping wood is a rishus, it's what we call optional or voluntary. You could do it. It's not something that you have to do. It's not a mitzvah. So af kol rishus. So too, any action, any activity that is just a rishus, it's just a voluntary, would cause a person to go into ir miklat, go into gullus, if he kills as a shogeg, if he kills by accident. And this excludes the following cases. Yatza, to exclude ha'av hamaka espino, if a father hits his son, not just for being abusive, but if part of the father's obligation of raising his son and teaching him right from wrong, he hits him to correct him and accidentally kills him in the process, even though that might sound like shogeg, we say he's not going to be sent into exile because it's a mitzvah, it's not a rishus. The harav harodes talmido, or if you have like Professor, I forgot his name already, hurting Harry Potter and Ron Weasley, because the professor has an obligation to train his students and to teach his students. And nowadays, maybe this would not be the case, but certainly not too long ago, it was common and normal for a teacher to hit his student as a way of teaching him. V'shliach beistin, or shliach beistin, if a guy is given lashes as a punishment for an avera, and the person is giving him lashes and kills him totally by accident in the process of giving him lashes, so there too it would also not be shogeg, because again, this is all within the context of a mitzvah. He has a mitzvah to carry out the Beis Din's punishment of Makos, of lashes, and if the guy gets killed as an accident by getting lashed, the lasher would not be punished by having to run to the Miklat. He would be ones, he would be off the hook.